Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film, Whiplash. If you ever have really wanted to do something, whether it's play music or draw or make movies or whatever, if you do get the honor to go to college for that you're given the opportunity to work with a teacher who you feel will be a game-changing teacher, who will change who you are, who will put you at the level that you've always wanted to achieve. Most of the time, the teacher knows that and knows the power he or she has over the students. And Whiplash explores that. This isn't like a Stand and Deliver or a Dead Poet Society kind of an amazing teacher who brings their kids up and makes them better people. Whiplash is more about kids who are broken and destroyed and made into professional musicians, whether the teacher, played by J.K. Simmons, has to destroy them or not. And it shows the dedication and the kind of the sickness in these kind of crazy mind games that people will play on them, whether it's through directing or through music or through whatever. I've actually seen it happen, and it's pretty messed up, but I've never seen a movie really go at that. It's always viewed more as the glory of the art. And this film really calls into question the motivations behind that and what that really does to the people who are being constantly abused and ripped apart, but also why they would want to be in that situation and why they would put up with that and put up with this abuse just to get to the point that they've always wanted to, and the power that teacher has over that. A 19-year-old jazz drummer named Andrew, who's going to the Schaefer Conservatory in New York, and it's his freshman year. At the beginning of the film, he is in a room practicing his jazz drums, and then J.K. Simmons, who plays Terrence Fletcher, comes into the room. One of the big conductors at Schaefer Music Conservatory, which is a fictional school, but I guess it's kind of based on Juilliard theoretically. And he listens to him, and he's really rude to him, but then he comes and lets him join the big jazz band that the Schaefer Conservatory is very famous for, and will play all throughout the country and at major competitions. Suddenly, Andrew has made his way up through the band as the drummer, and he's not just the alternate, he becomes the main drummer in the band. He also tries to go out with a girl he met at a revival movie house, even though those don't really exist anymore, but in this movie's little world it does. Where he goes with his dad to see Rafifi. He meets this girl who he sees all the time, and he starts going out with her. But as J.K. Simmons' character of Terrence Fletcher keeps breaking him down and keeps having him practice, one time even till 2 in the morning, having him get the right exact tempo as he competes with the other alternates, Terrence Fletcher does various emotional and psychological tricks on him to get him to play better and better, to get him to have a breakthrough. He keeps talking about this story about how Charlie Parker had a cymbal thrown at him and how that made him a better musician. And Andrew keeps thinking that that is the way to go, that he will be a better musician, as J.K. Simmons keeps breaking him down. He eventually has to break up with his girlfriend because he can't spend enough time with her, because he needs to spend time on music, and he starts becoming more and more of kind of a jerk as he's accomplished and achieved more being in this band at the age he is. As everyone's not sure of the emotional toll and psychological toll this band and this teacher is actually having on him. This is a really intense and an immersive film. And certainly the performance by J.K. Simmons is scary and terrifying, but the director of this film, Damien Chazelle, let's go with that, he brings an intensity to some of these sequences in the band room that you really wouldn't see from even the finest Hollywood thriller directors, or at least currently. He has an intensity in the way he edits them together, has the movements like a thriller. I mentioned that they saw Rafifi, and it felt like he really channeled more of films like that than channeling films that had anything to do with musical prodigies. That's why this film feels so different from those. It shares really no DNA, only that there is a teacher who everyone says is great and a big deal, and there's a student who really wants to be great. And the director of this film brought that out and made a small world that Andrew lives in. All he really cares about is playing the drums. He's there all the time. He has a small world of his dad, his girlfriend. He doesn't really have any other friends. I've seen in some reviews they refer to the other people in the band merely as set dressing, and that's almost really true. It's a little insulting to the people who were in the movie, but whatever. He has this small world. It's like all that matters to him is playing great in this jazz band. And the director really brings that intensity out through his direction. Some of the drumming sequences, particularly towards the end, have so much intensity to them, I felt like buzzing afterwards. It was a really thrilling experience. I haven't seen jazz drumming filmed in such an exciting way, maybe ever, but certainly not in a long time, and it's certainly not in modern cinema in a very loving way. My dad listened to a lot of jazz, so I have some familiarity with it, but I'm not an expert by any means. For a while, the interesting thing about how they present the music is when he's in the band and they're practicing, I could almost hear that it didn't feel like a finished product. It felt kind of raw, and he really films it that way. He films it like you're in kind of a rehearsal space, but then when it gets bigger and broader, it becomes more and more together. And there was that like feeling of the drummer really uniting them and how important the drummer is, but also the intensity of those sequences with the teacher played by J.K. Simmons. J.K. Simmons, who is an amazing character actor, and one of my favorite roles for him was his role as J. Jonah Jameson, but he's always memorable. This is a great performance for a character actor like him, that he can really break out, but it also shows his range and how he's always been really good at playing total assholes, and this is probably the ultimate total asshole that he could play. One of the best things about him in this is like when he hurls an insult at you, it almost feels like he's coming from someplace that you don't understand. You feel like he knows more about jazz than you. He has that sense of a teacher. You think he knows the way to unlock the kingdom that you don't, and that he can rip you apart because he knows he has that power, because he knows he can take you there. But he also goes too far, and he brings such an intensity to it that you're almost scared when he walks in the room. And when he's calm, it's spooky too. And J.K. Simmons knows how to play that. He's really like a classical character actor. He's one of the few that Hollywood really has. He would be at home in an old Hollywood studio system movie. It's like an older acting style. It plays off of the younger actors who aren't really doing that, who aren't familiar with that. And that really goes into what Miles Teller does, because Miles Teller, these two wouldn't work as well without one another. What Miles Teller is doing, I've heard people compare it to like what a young Tom Cruise would do. And I think that's true in that, like, if you think of The Color of Money, one of the reasons Paul Newman was so good is because he had someone to play off of. But Miles Teller is really good at playing into that intensity and that single-mindedness and being like that kid just trapped in his schoolwork, and how small that world can really be. And he understands that and has that confidence and that cockiness of youth. He succeeded in something and he can show up these people, specifically at the Thanksgiving scene. That shows especially like how cocky he's really become with his success. And Miles Teller can play that really well, but also show like how inexperienced he is. Such a remarkable, really young ingenue performance, but using that to play off of J.K. Simmons. They really work with one another. Sometimes its intensity, it gets a little too far. Apparently the blood on the drums thing is completely made up and just for the effect, which this movie does play up quite a bit. But the intense feeling of it, it's really quite remarkable what Whiplash does throughout this movie. It really shows a music school in a way that's not this nice, oh, you become this great musician throughout it. It's almost like a psychological game at play throughout this film. The way the director plays it, like a tense thriller. I've never seen a music film directed this way. Apparently he based it on an experience he had in high school in a jazz band. I can see that he lived through that and lived through this experience, and it just has that raw intensity to it. It feels like kind of a 70s film. It feels like a film that's about character and story and motivation and the effect these characters have on one another. You could think of how in music there are certain people who were really kind of dangerous for each other and had a bad relationship, but they made some amazing music, and how they're kind of in that and they kind of love it to a certain extent, but they also know it's very bad for them. I mean, look at Ike and Tina Turner. I like their music a lot more together, but I would never think she should have ever gotten back with him. Like most of Phil Spector's relationships. In Whiplash, it gets to the point of why he would want to keep going back and why Terrence Fletcher would want to keep breaking him down. That all feeds into each other, and how that makes a terrible combination in terms of the emotions for these people, and how it really ruins them. It ruins them emotionally and makes Andrew into this tense and intense person. I really left this film just buzzing. Even when it feels like it's derailing, it comes right back in a kind of an amazing, triumphant way that just shows how much he captured these characters, but also how well directed and well plotted out it was. And it's nice to see kind of a small movie. I think a lot of people talk about how great small movies are and they're more about character and blah blah blah. And most of the time it's just really a bunch of crap. Big movies can do that too. Just because it's a small movie doesn't mean it does that. But Whiplash fucking does it, and does that. A really remarkable film with not very many characters, this kind of unhealthy relationship, and it leaves you with a story that's really uncompromising and kind of shows you, I think teachers are great people and things like that, but also the evil that power has over people, and the people who really need that teaching and feel like this is what's important to me, this is what's going to get me to this level, and how he can really use that and abuse that to a point, and how maybe that kid is just always going to come back for more. So if you have seen Whiplash and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.